Cookie Queen's Meghan Markle's first theatrical release under Archwell Productions. I mean, we can mention Harry, but let's be honest, Harry is totally superfluous here. But I have one assessment: Cookie bore. It was pretty boring. And honestly, I came out of the theater liking the Girl Scouts a heck of a lot less than I did with my pretty neutral remembrance of them before. It felt like the whole cookie selling thing is very exploitative. And yes, the film, I think, plays with that a little bit. But if the Girl Scouts was hoping that this would encourage other people...
The problem with Cookie Queens is not that it is too sweet. The problem is that it never quite decides what its sweetness is hiding. On paper, this should have been an easy documentary to like. 4 ambitious young Girl Scouts, cookie season, family support, big goals, little wagons, bright uniforms, local communities, and the classic American ritual of children learning confidence through knocking on doors and selling Thin Mints. It is the kind of subject that practically arrives pre-packaged with warmth. But once you look past the cuteness, the film becomes more complicated. It wants to celebrate girlhood and entrepreneurship, yet it keeps brushing against questions about pressure, performance, money, sales targets, family anxiety, and whether the children are learning business skills or simply carrying a massive fundraising machine on their small shoulders.
But let's go ahead and get back into this film, which I would give a 2 out of 5 stars, to be honest. I don't give it high praise. I think it's boring. I think it meanders. I'm confused some of the times as to what exactly is going on because you don't get any narration. And I want to be clear as well, guys. None of my criticisms are an indictment on the young girls involved. None of it is.
That is the real story here, and it is much more interesting than a simple 2-star review or another complaint about Meghan Markle. Cookie Queens was directed by Elisa Nahmias and released in theaters on the 7th of August, 2026. The film's own promotional material describes it as a look at 4 tenacious girls competing during Girl Scout cookie season inside an $800 million business where innocence and ambition collide. It was made by Beautiful Stories and AJ&A Films in association with Archwell Productions, among others. Because Archwell is attached, the documentary automatically becomes part of the Harry and Meghan conversation, but the girls themselves should not be treated as extensions of that controversy. They are children. They are not responsible for the Sussex brand, the adult editing choices, the promotional language, or the larger debate about Meghan's public image. That distinction matters. The young girls in the film appear bright, determined, funny, and at times genuinely moving. Any fair criticism has to be aimed above their heads toward the filmmaking, the producing, the framing, and the way adults have chosen to present their stories. A child selling cookies at a booth is not the issue. A child trying to reach a goal is not the issue. A child being proud of a trophy is not the issue. The issue is whether the film knows what it is asking the audience to feel. Is this supposed to be a cheerful portrait of leadership, a critique of a sales system, a coming-of-age documentary, a public service advertisement for the Girl Scouts, a Meghan-adjacent prestige project? At different moments, it seems to want to be all of those things, and that is why it never fully lands.
If I felt like there was a story, and what I felt overall is that it was just kind of boring and relied very much on the cuteness of the girls to get by, but also that huge chunks of it felt exceedingly contrived to me. Unbelievably contrived. So, in particular...
The documentary follows 4 girls: Olive from North Carolina, Nikki from Chino, California, Shannon Elizabeth from El Paso, Texas, and Ara from San Diego. Each has a different goal and a different kind of screen presence. Olive is the high achiever, the record-setting seller whose numbers are staggering. Vanity Fair reported that she sold 12,801 boxes in the season depicted and had raised more than $200,000 for the organization through cookie sales. Nikki is connected to a family legacy of successful Girl Scout sellers and has 2 older sisters who have already been through the cookie grind. Shannon Elizabeth's storyline centers on a very high target connected to the cost of camp. Ara, who is only 5 and has type 1 diabetes, has a more modest sales goal and dreams of a sugar-free cookie she calls the Tum Yum. Those are strong ingredients for a documentary. The frustrating part is that the film often has the ingredients without the structure. One of the biggest problems is the lack of connective tissue. Instead of a guiding narration, a clear thesis, or a deeper explanation of the cookie economy, the film relies heavily on scene after scene of selling, waiting, walking, counting, reacting, and pushing toward targets. There are time markers for the weeks of the season, but they do not always make the emotional arc clearer. A good documentary does not have to spoon-feed the audience, but it does need to orient us. We need to understand what is at stake, what choices the girls and families are making, what the rules are, and how much of the drama is ordinary difficulty versus adult-created pressure. Without that structure, the film can feel like a series of cute episodes looking for a story. That is especially true with Shannon Elizabeth.
Yet, at the end of the day, she still sold 2,700 boxes. Now, bravo to her. She met and exceeded her goal, which was 2,750. She, I think, did 2,600. And they did extend the sales period by like a couple of weeks or something like that, or maybe even longer. Honestly, I got bored and forgot. So anyways, so she did get extra time. But there was a scene, and what annoyed me too is like when the parents are talking about, you know, being worried about these boxes and selling them, the camera gets close up into the mom's face as the tear goes by. It's like, oh my gosh, drama. We gotta get the drama. That's what it felt like. And it felt very exploitative to me.
Her arc, at least as described in the original review, involves a large cookie order, a major goal, and parents who are worried about what happens if the boxes do not sell. The film apparently leans into that pressure, including emotional close-ups and scenes where selling appears difficult. But then the numbers still resolve upward. She reaches or nearly reaches the goal, and the film moves on. That creates a strange disconnect. If the family truly face serious financial risk because of unsold inventory, then the documentary should explain that system clearly. If the danger was exaggerated for dramatic tension, then the film should not ask us to treat it as a crisis. Either way, the audience is left wondering whether the drama came from the reality of cookie season or from the need to make a sales campaign feel cinematic. This is the point where the movie could have become genuinely sharp. Girl Scout cookie sales are beloved, but they are also a business system. Official Girl Scout materials say cookie sales are meant to teach goal setting, decision-making, money management, people skills, and business ethics. They also explain that after paying the baker, revenue stays with the local council and that troop proceeds usually represent a smaller share of the retail price. Some councils describe troop proceeds as roughly 10 to 20% of the local retail price, while the rest supports council operations, camps, programming, volunteer support, and other costs. The film itself, according to reviews, has the girls observe that only about $1.10 from a $6 box goes directly to them or their troop. That is not automatically scandalous. Local councils need money to run programs.
And again, their concerns might have been absolutely genuine, but I'm like wondering now, like how much of it was and how much of it wasn't. And were they encouraged to embellish certain things to make the stories more compelling because maybe the story wasn't that compelling? And the other contrived instances where there was one, especially, and let me look it up here because I think it was with Olive, who was like one of the number one sellers in the country. And there was an
but it is a huge subject, and the documentary only partly engages with it. The question is not whether the Girl Scouts are secretly evil or whether cookie sales have no value. That would be too simple. The real question is what children are learning when the lesson is embedded inside a fundraising structure they do not control. Are they learning entrepreneurship or are they learning salesmanship? Are they learning how to build something, price it, manage costs, understand margin, and decide what to do with profit? Or are they learning how to move inventory for a larger institution while adults tell them the experience is empowering? Both things can be true at once. A girl can gain confidence and still be used by a system. A family can love the organization and still feel pressure. A cookie booth can teach courage and still raise uncomfortable questions about childhood labor, parental obligation, and non-profit branding. That is the documentary's missed opportunity. Imagine a version of Cookie Queens. that followed one girl who easily met her goal, one who exceeded expectations, one who changed her mind halfway through, and one who did not sell enough and had to confront the consequences. Imagine if the film explained exactly how many boxes a family orders, what happens to unsold stock, how troop rewards work, how camps are funded, and how much decision-making power girls actually have. Imagine if it showed parents debating how much is too much, leaders discussing the pressure to perform, girls saying they love the challenge one day and hate it the next, and former Girl Scouts reflecting on whether the sales program helped them later in life. That would have been a richer film. It might have been less glossy, but it would have been more honest. Olive's story...
12,000 boxes that year, which I think was 2024, that she still wasn't sure. She still wasn't sure. Her mom goes, well, I did that last year. And Olive talks about, well, you're pushing me, Mom, which might have all been true. But especially with Olive, it just felt like they set her up and just like a bunch of people would come all the time and they were totally cool with coming on camera as if they were plants. It felt like it was a lot of people being planted and they kept going, oh, you're such a good...
Comes closest to that deeper tension. She is obviously talented at selling. She has the confidence, the quickness, and the stamina that make people stop and listen. But a child selling more than 12,000 boxes is not just a cute fact, it is a workload. It raises questions about ambition, identity, parental involvement, media attention, and whether success can become its own trap. The most interesting moment is not that Olive is good at selling. It is when she appears unsure whether she wants to keep doing it. That is where the film should slow down. What happens when a child becomes known for one extraordinary achievement and then realizes that repeating it may not bring joy? What happens when the badge of confidence becomes a burden? What happens when adults praise a girl for endurance but do not ask whether the endurance is costing something? Nikki's storyline seems to be the most naturally charming because it has a clear family structure. She is following older sisters who have already been local top sellers, and that gives her goal an emotional shape. She is not just selling cookies. She is stepping into a family tradition. A sister helping with makeup, a younger girl wanting her own trophy, the mixture of admiration and rivalry inside a household, those details can work because they feel human. They do not need to be overproduced. If anything, the film could have trusted Nikki's story more by making it smaller. Sometimes the best documentary moments are not the dramatic goal announcements, but the ordinary family exchanges that reveal how ambition is learnt at home. Ara's storyline is the most delicate because she is so young. She has type 1 diabetes, and her wish for a sugar-free Girl Scout cookie gives the film a clean, emotional hook. It also has an obvious symbolic appeal. A child inside the cookie world asking why that world does not fully include children like her.
There was just a part of me, not that she wasn't selling and being fantastic, wonderful, and amazing at it, but it felt like they got a bunch of extras there to go up and buy boxes for this scene and to say certain things. And it just lacked a believability after a while, especially, Shayna, 2,600 boxes is a huge number of boxes. And yet we see Shannon Elizabeth wandering around empty places for a while. Then all of a sudden she sells all of them. It's like, okay, so was she ever really struggling to sell, or was that just a bad day and there were a lot of good days?
That is compelling. But the original review notes that some of her scenes felt staged, especially a moment involving a customer with diabetes and her homemade sugar-free cookie. Even if the scene grew out of a real interaction, the problem is that the film apparently presents it in a way that looks too neatly arranged. With young children, that matters. Viewers become sensitive to whether they are watching a child being herself or a child being moved through a scene that adults have built around her. That is where Cookie Queen seems to suffer from the same problem that has followed several Sussex-adjacent projects. Over-polish, the footage looks shaped, managed, and pointed toward a predetermined feeling. We are supposed to be inspired. We are supposed to feel moved. We are supposed to see girlhood, leadership, resilience, and future power. But inspiration works best when it sneaks up on the viewer. If a documentary keeps signaling that a moment is meaningful, the audience begins to resist. A tear close-up, a conveniently timed customer, a perfectly framed quote, a trophy scene, a heartfelt promotional interview. One or two of those can work. Too many can make the whole thing feel like a campaign. That is not only a filmmaking problem, it is a brand problem. Archwell has often struggled with the difference between having access to emotional material and building a strong story from it. Heart of Invictus had access to wounded veterans with extraordinary journeys, but many viewers felt the Sussex framing sometimes pulled focus away from the athlete. The Polo Project had access to an elite sport with danger, wealth, rivalry, and physical risk, but it still struggled to become broadly compelling.
To get girls who were, yes, high sellers, but of a variety of different levels of high sellers. So Ara wanted to sell 55 boxes. I think she sold at least 60. Nikki wanted to sell like 1,600. Shannon, 27,500. Olive's initial goal was 4,000, and then she sold 12,000. So we have a variety of levels. I would have liked to see somebody, though, like their goal was like 500 or something. But I honestly think they had too much, and they honestly didn't know how to streamline it, I think, into a good story. And that has been Harry and Meghan's problem.
Cookie Queens has access to children, families, American tradition, sales pressure, gender, money, and ambition. Yet the complaint is the same. The deeper story seems to be sitting in the room, while the finished product keeps choosing the safer, prettier version. This is why Meghan's promotional comments are so important. She told people that when she and Harry first saw an early teaser, they felt Elisa Namias was capturing something special, praising the score, cinematography, and honesty. She said the project made them laugh and feel emotional as parents, and that they wanted to help uplift it. She also described the film as showing both the joys and pressures of girlhood, arguing that every girl and every family could see part of themselves in the stories. That sounds exactly like the film's intended thesis. But according to the critique in the source material, the finished documentary does not fully earn that language. The pressure is visible, but not deeply explored. The joy is present, but often flattened into cuteness. The honesty is claimed, but some scenes feel too arranged to be trusted. Meghan's personal connection also complicates the promotion. She has said she was a brownie and junior Girl Scout growing up in Los Angeles, with her mother, Doria Ragland, serving as troop leader. That gives her a natural reason to care about the subject. It also helps explain why Cookie Queens fits her current image: motherhood, girlhood, leadership, female entrepreneurship, soft Americana, and a wholesome childhood memory. But because Meghan's public image is already so intensely managed, even a genuine connection can start to look like branding. The audience does not simply hear, "I was a Girl Scout and this moved me." They hear, "This fits the identity I am currently selling." That may be unfair, but it is the reality of her credibility problem.
A long time here is that they just can't build a good story together. There's just not that. I don't think the director of the documentary did all that good a job. And maybe if you're a Girl Scout, maybe you'll just like automatically love it and you'll see everything and stuff like that. But as an outsider looking in, and you always have to think as an outsider looking in, I just came away not liking the Girl Scouts, to be honest. I didn't like it. It felt a little cultish, especially when they, had to, sing their song or whatever and make their pledge.
The BuzzFeed Tasty promotion made that even clearer. Meghan appeared with the director and several girls from the film to create a new cookie, and the conversation turned into exactly the kind of lifestyle-friendly content Meghan now favors. Childhood lessons, favorite cookies, jam pairings, teamwork, and gentle advice. She mentioned liking cookies with jam, and people reported the line in a way that quickly became another small internet discussion. On its own, this is harmless. A person can put jam on shortbread or even make a strange snack combination, and the world will survive. But because Meghan has a fruit spread brand, and because she is trying to build a lifestyle identity, even a cookie preference can look like a product placement waiting to happen. That is the risk of over-branding. When every appearance can be connected back to, as ever, motherhood, kindness, resilience, or royal softness, the audience starts to suspect the spontaneity has been drained out. Cookie Queens should belong primarily to the girls. Yet the promotional orbit keeps pulling attention back to Meghan. Meghan as former Girl Scout, Meghan as mother, Meghan as executive producer, Meghan as cookie taster, Meghan as giver of gentle wisdom. Meghan as promoter of young female entrepreneurs. Harry is present in the credits and in Meghan's descriptions of parental emotion, but he is much less visible in the public selling of the film. That makes the project feel less like a joint Archwell production and more like another chapter in Meghan's lifestyle repositioning. The phrase financial literacy deserves particular attention. Meghan praised the film for showing girls with skills that could set them up.
So Ara makes her own cookies and comes over to him. They're sugar-free and she's gonna sell them to him. And I'm like, we get multiple camera angles at one point of this interaction. I'm like, this is so totally fake. It's so fake. And I think some of the selling was, of course, real, but I think some of it was faked for the cameras. Like, that's just like the likelihood. I mean, if you're following them all day, you may find that
A future success. The Girl Scouts also describe cookie selling as a way to teach money management, people skills, goal setting, and business ethics. That is the official ideal. But if the film is going to claim financial literacy, it has to show more than girls trying to hit a box target. Financial literacy is not merely asking customers to buy something. It is understanding cost, revenue, profit, pricing, debt, risk, inventory, and the difference between total sales and actual earnings. If a $6 box yields only a small troop share, that is financial literacy. If parents may be anxious about unsold boxes, that is financial literacy. If girls cannot individually keep proceeds, that is financial literacy. The documentary seems to approach those questions, but not with enough courage. That matters, because the most powerful line in the whole film may be the economic one. A child realizing that she sells a $6 box and only a fraction comes back to her troop is a far more interesting moment than another montage of smiling customers. It is the moment where innocence meets the structure behind the innocence. A young girl can understand unfairness very quickly. She may not have an adult vocabulary for non-profit finance, but she can feel the gap between effort and reward. If Cookie Queens had centered that gap, it could have become a smart film about American childhood, fundraising, ambition, and the way institutions teach girls to work hard inside systems they did not design. Instead, the film appears to pull back when the critique gets sharp. It gestures toward pressure, but reassures us with achievement. It gestures toward the money split, but keeps the tone cheerful. It gestures toward family anxiety, but
narrative piece is missing that kind of did not coalesce into a cohesive whole. And I honestly, guys, was bored. I was bored in sections. Like, there was one bit with Ara trying to drag her trolley like in the sand across, and I felt like that went on for way too long. And I was like, okay, I felt that urge to cut it right there, and then it would have been kind of funny, but then it dragged a little too long, and then
avoids showing real failure. It gestures toward the cost of ambition, but returns to trophies and cute scenes. That is why the critic in the original transcript came away liking the Girl Scouts less, not more. A promotional film can backfire when it reveals just enough discomfort to make the audience curious, then refuses to answer the questions it has raised. Viewers do not forget the discomfort. They simply assume the film chose not to examine it. The traditions of the Girl Scouts also needed more context. For some viewers, the pledge, songs, friendship circles, badges, and ceremonies may feel warm and nostalgic. For others, especially those who did not grow up inside that world, they can feel strange, even overly ritualized. A documentary has to help outsiders understand why those traditions matter. It cannot assume automatic affection. If the goal is to attract people to the organization, the film must show more than cookie season. It should show camping, service, STEM work, friendships, leadership projects, community impact, and the less commercial side of scouting. The official Girl Scout materials describe the cookie program as one part of a broader experience. If Cookie Queens focuses mostly on sales, then it risks reducing the organization to the very fundraising machine critics worry about. There is a version of this documentary that could have defended the Girl Scouts more effectively by being more honest. It could have said, yes, cookie season is intense. Yes, the money structure is complicated. Yes, parents sometimes feel pressure. Yes, not every girl loves selling. Yes, the organization depends heavily on this revenue. And yes, many girls still gain confidence, friendships, and practical skills through the experience. That would have felt,
to be quite honest. But let's go ahead and get back to the Girl Scouts overall. I don't like the organization. I like it less than I did walking into the film. And the reason is it feels like, and like the director is conscious of this, but at the same time doesn't push it because I think she wants this to be cute. Whereas I think there's actually a much better story than what she did, which was basically like, these girls are cute. But I didn't realize that if you're selling Girl Scout cookies, you as a parent, if your child does not
adult. Instead, the film seems to want the emotional reward of critique without the discomfort of following critique to its conclusion. It wants the audience to admire the girls' hustle but not linger too long on why so much hustle is required. The end credit mention of Olive's involvement around the SAG-AFTRA strike, as described in the Source review, points to another concern: adults using children to symbolize causes they may not fully understand. This does not mean children can never care about public issues. Many do, and they often understand more than adults give them credit for. But documentaries about children have a special responsibility to distinguish between a child's own voice and adult ideological framing. If a child appears at a Labour protest, the film should explain why she is there, what she understands, and how the adults around her think about it. Otherwise, it becomes another image of a young person placed inside an adult narrative because the image is powerful. There is another reason this matters for the viewer. Children are often the easiest subjects to make emotionally effective and the hardest subjects to treat honestly. They are expressive, unguarded, and naturally funny. A child struggling with a wagon or celebrating a sale will almost always produce a watchable moment. But that can become a shortcut. If the camera relies on charm alone, the adults no longer have to build a strong argument. The viewer smiles, the scene passes, and the harder questions stay untouched. Cookie Queen seems to lean too often on that shortcut. The girls can carry scenes, but they should not have to carry the whole thesis of the film. The best documentaries about children usually understand that the adults around the children are part of the story.
It just felt like you were very much exploiting the girls in order to make money for the organization, and they didn't really get to keep any of it. So I have to wonder in some ways, how much did some of those girls really learn in terms of entrepreneurship and sales? Did they really learn all that much? Did they learn positive sales tactics, or did they learn manipulative ones that are only there to fulfill an agenda and to get them things? Now, of course, all sales is to a certain extent about making money, not denying that at all. But at the same time, it's like, these are little girls.
Parents shape the goals. Organizations shape the rules. Producers shape the scene. Editors shape what the audience thinks happened. That does not make the children less impressive. It makes the world around them more visible. Cookie Queens would have benefited from more of that adult context. A troop leader explaining the quota logic, a council representative defending the revenue model, a parent admitting the stress, a former seller looking back with mixed feelings, and perhaps a girl saying plainly that she loves some parts of cookie season and dislikes others. Those voices would not have ruined the charm. They would have made the charm more credible. That is also why the film's G rating and family-friendly packaging are not enough. A documentary about children can still raise adult questions. In fact, it should. Children exist inside adult systems, schools, charities, clubs, families, media, money, and branding. Cookie Queens seems to know this, but it does not quite know what to do with it. Children are treated as charming subjects, while the systems around them remain softer, blurrier, less accountable. A stronger film would have trusted the audience to handle complexity. Children can be wonderful, and the system around them can still deserve scrutiny. Those two ideas are not enemies. Meghan's quote about Harry's military advice adds another layer, because it shows how quickly promotion shifts from the film to the Sussex mythology. At a screening Q&A, Meghan reportedly recalled Harry telling her that even when there is a storm above, the sun is still shining above that storm. She connected it to perspective, hard days, and goals that seem impossible until they are reached. It is a pleasant enough motivational image, and it fits the film's theme of children pushing through difficulty. But it also reveals a habit in Meghan's public speaking. The universal lesson is routed through Harry.
To their detriment, I think a parent should be conscientious of how much somebody can sell and not, let's say, overindulgent, going, oh, you'll sell 500 boxes and they only sold 5. Like that's kind of dumb on the parents' part. But at the same time, like, you've put enormous pressure on the parents, and the parents now put on the child going, you have to sell because I have $6,000 that I will have to pay the Girl Scouts back. If you don't sell these boxes, we don't have $6,000. We might then lose the house. If that is a reality, then the Girl Scout system of selling cookies is broken. I'm sorry, but it is.
Resilience and the Sussex story of weathering storms. Suddenly, the documentary about Girl Scouts becomes another mirror for Harry and Meghan's own narrative of endurance. That is not necessarily malicious. Producers often promote films by explaining why the material resonated with their own lives. But Meghan's public language can become so polished and inspirational that it starts to sound generic. Keep a good heart. The sun is above the storm. Putting the DOS behind the says. These are all gentle phrases, but they can feel like slogans unless anchored in something specific. Cookie Queens needed less slogan and more substance. The girls themselves likely had more interesting things to say than any adult tagline around them. Olive's uncertainty about continuing. Ara's desire for a sugar-free option. Nikki's family inheritance. Shannon Elizabeth's pressure around camp. Those are concrete. Those are where the real film lives. The harshest conclusion is that Archwell keeps choosing subjects with natural emotional power and then sanding them down into brand-safe inspiration. Veterans, polo players, young girls, family resilience, female ambition. These are not weak subjects, but they need tension, contradiction, and trust in the audience. If every project has to flatter the people attached to it, avoid too much institutional critique, and produce a clean, inspirational message, then the stories lose their edge. Cookie Queens could have been a surprising documentary about the cost of teaching girls ambition inside a sales culture. Instead, based on the source review and outside criticism, it seems to become a sweet, staged, occasionally revealing film that never quite follows its own evidence. The more generous conclusion is that Cookie Queens is a children's adjacent documentary made for families, not a hard-hitting investigation. Maybe it never wanted to be the deeper film critics are imagining. Maybe it wanted to celebrate girls who work hard, set goals, and gain confidence. That is a legitimate aim. Not every documentary has to be a takedown, but even a light film has to know what story it is telling. If it shows a family worried about selling thousands of boxes, the audience will ask about pressure. If it mentions the profit split, the audience will ask about money. If it shows children talking like seasoned salespeople, the audience will ask who taught them to speak that way. Once those questions appear, ignoring them makes the film feel thinner, not kinder. This is why the review of Cookie Queens ultimately becomes a review of Meghan and Harry's producing instincts.
I don't think those girls are learning really strong messages, and I didn't really get much of a sense of girlhood. I didn't get, the emotion Meghan thought we would get. I didn't get any of that. It was just kind of there. And once again, Harry and Meghan left the more compelling stories on the cutting room floor, if there were any. They should have so picked somebody who hopefully didn't actually make the goal, because that would have actually been really interesting. I would have been more interested in the challenges that places on a family to highlight some of the more negative aspects of the Girl Scouts, rather than just going with straight positive. And just didn't really like it.
Their names bring attention, but attention is not the same as depth. Their involvement can help a small documentary reach a wider audience, but it also changes how the documentary is read. Viewers approach it expecting either Sussex virtue or Sussex failure, and that is an unfair burden for a film about Girl Scouts. At the same time, Archwell chose to attach itself to the project. If Harry and Meghan want to be serious producers, they cannot only receive credit when the subject is charming. They also inherit responsibility for whether the finished work has clarity, courage, and narrative force. The audience does not need Meghan to be the villain of Cookie Queens. That would be too easy and too lazy. The more useful critique is that her promotional language promises a level of emotional and thematic richness that the film apparently struggles to deliver. She speaks about honesty, pressures, girlhood, leadership, financial literacy, and future success. Those are big claims. If the film merely shows cute girls selling cookies and occasionally bumping into the edge of harder questions, then the marketing has oversold it. And overselling has been a recurring Sussex problem. The promise of transformation, the promise of truth, the promise of healing, the promise of impact, followed by content that feels smaller than the language around it. The Girl Scouts, meanwhile, are left with a mixed result. On one hand, the film puts ambitious girls on screen and may inspire some families who already love the organization. It shows confidence, persistence, family involvement, and the excitement of reaching a goal. On the other hand, it may make skeptical viewers more skeptical by spotlighting the pressure and economics of cookie season without fully defending or interrogating them. If the goal was recruitment, the film may not persuade people who were already unsure. A parent watching a family worry over inventory, or a child pushing toward thousands of boxes, might not think, I want this for my daughter. They might think, this looks stressful. That does not mean the cookie program has no value. Many girls do learn how to speak to adults, handle rejection, count money, set goals, and work with a troupe. Many families have fond memories. Many councils use cookie revenue to fund experiences that would otherwise be unaffordable. The problem is that a good documentary should make those benefits more convincing, not less. It should leave viewers understanding why the pressure is worth it, how the money helps, and what safeguards protect girls and families from the worst version of the system. If the film leaves too many viewers asking whether the children are being overused, then something in the storytelling has failed. The simplest way to describe Cookie Queens is this: it has the right subjects and the wrong amount of nerve. The girls are interesting, the world is interesting, the money is interesting. The parental pressure is interesting. The institutional dependence on child sales is interesting. Meghan's involvement is interesting. The clash between wholesome nostalgia and modern documentary scrutiny is interesting. But the film seems to keep choosing the safer emotional route. It wants applause when it should sometimes risk discomfort.
And that's a testament to Alyssa and the crew and really how hard they worked on this.
So we'll see if I can play that for copyright reasons. So you may just see that really briefly and then we'll go past it. But Meghan talked about how this is a quintessential part of Americana. We can all see ourselves in it. And there's something there that's just so much deeper than what you might think beyond being cute. I'm sorry, I watched your film and all I saw was cuteness attempting to drive a narrative. And while that can be done well, I don't think it was done in this particular case. The movie was boring at times. It was contrived. It dragged. And I feel like it failed to actually show
wants the audience to say how adorable, when the better question might be, how does this system actually work? And that is where the film becomes a perfect Archwell artifact. It is built around uplift, but the real material is uneasy. It gestures toward a social issue, but it does not quite prosecute the issue. It centers vulnerable or young subjects, but the adult brand around it becomes part of the conversation. It arrives with polished promotional quotes, but viewers sense there is a more complicated story behind the polish. It is not a disaster, but it is not the strong documentary it could have been. It is sweet, but sweetness alone cannot carry 90 minutes. Cuteness is an entry point, not a structure. Inspiration is an outcome, not a substitute for story. In the end, Cookie Queens may be most valuable for what it accidentally reveals. It reveals how powerful the Girl Scout cookie tradition still is, but also how strange it can look when examined closely. It reveals how impressive young girls can be, but also how easily adult systems can turn children's ambition into content. It reveals Meghan's desire to attach herself to wholesome female entrepreneurship, but also the public's growing impatience with soft-focus branding. And it reveals Archwell's continuing challenge, finding stories with real depth, then resisting the urge to smooth them into something safer, prettier, and less memorable. The girls deserved a film with more clarity, The audience deserved a film with more courage. And Harry and Meghan, if they want to be taken seriously as producers, need to understand that a meaningful story is not created by calling it meaningful. It is created by following the uncomfortable questions all the way to the end.